Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave,
on behalf of every father and every mother,
wings for freedom. On behalf
of our warriors, and paves the way for a new history.
Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly. I am today the presenter as Joseph is taking a couple of weeks time off, which is well deserved. That means I will not attempt to do the news. I would not want to even try to mimic what Joseph is doing every week. So we are going to skip the news this week, but we still have a lot of nice things for you today. We will basically do some frontline updates and also we will get some updates from the unit front. So Sirdo is with us from the unit observer team and very interested to hear what news they have. Jay is also assisting me in the frontline update, and then we have our backseat General Andrew Perpetra with us. But before that, I think there is a very short update from German aid to Ukraine. So please go ahead, Gao.
Yeah, very short one. As always, I will now present this week's most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine. And this week, like I said, it's a very brief segment. I only have one single item to report about. Most of the stuff is going on next week. So it will be published in the next week's stream. With financial assistance from the German government, the GS Foundation formally handed over 140 archway metal detectors and 140 handheld metal detectors from the company Garrett to the Education Security Service of Ukraine. The equipment will be used to strengthen the security measures in Ukrainian schools and will allow 1,000 students to be screened in just 20 minutes. Yeah, that's already all what I had for this week. So I mute myself again and wish you a good remaining stream. Back to you, Erlend.
Thank you, Gao. Is there a teaser about maybe there being more news next time, or was that a misunderstanding of mine?
Well, I can tell you that there will be big news tomorrow. Don't know about the other things, but I know that there will be big news coming from Germany tomorrow, at least in my understanding. But nothing which I can make public now. And yeah, just wait for the day.
That is at least also a piece of news, which I think is very interesting. And yeah, everyone watch out for news about German aid tomorrow, I guess. And also follow Gao on Twitter, since I'm sure he's going to be one of the first people reporting it.
Yeah, articles already fully written. Just needs to be published.
Yeah. Okay, great. Follow Gao. That's big news coming from Germany tomorrow, apparently. So, yeah. So basically, we're going to try and do a map update. So welcome Sirdo, welcome Jay, and welcome Andrew.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you for having me. Hello, good evening to our dear audience, and I'm also happy to have these both experts here around with Mr. Unit Rotation himself, Sirdo, and Andrew, who has seen every footage.
Hello, everybody. I'm just gonna be over here mapping.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah. Okay.
You have a lot to do, right? It's not big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a lot to do. It's like an infinite supply. It's like a hose to your face of information.
That's what we enjoy, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna try and share the screen and yeah, this is Andrew's map from yesterday. A whole lot of events, and we are going to try and do clockwise rotation, and we're going to start off with Vovchansk. So, Jay, what do you want to say about Vovchansk?
First of all, you're in Sumy, and
I messed up.
we can, but yeah, Sumy is of course also a theater, but there are basically no news I would consider relevant. So yeah, we can go directly to Vovchansk. Like, of course, there's military activity in Sumy, but nothing of significance, no changes at the front line, basically. In Vovchansk, it's a bit different. As we can see, when Erlend is going back on the map, there were some small tactical advances from the Russian side. As I understood it, if I understood it correctly, it's because they had some reinforcements in your regiment arrived there, and yeah, these areas, it looks rather smallish, like very unimportant in the center, in the south of Vovchansk. Also in Tichy, but that's not so important, and also in southwest of Vovchansk towards Zinelnikovo, and also Vilcha. You can see here in the map which date is it. Sorry, I can't see it because of the panel. To which date of the map did you go?
6th.
This month. Okay, yeah, this was the situation where the Russians started to advance, and also into Vilcha. It's southern outskirt of Vovchansk. It's relatively easy to geo because this is like a I don't know how to call it, Trabant town. Like, it's relatively new. And yeah, there were some geolocations coming out. This is just the airstrike, but also there was drone activity in Vilcha. Like, the Ukrainians basically started to drone it, so there was some Russian infiltration, and this is potential problem. It's not of major significance, but to the area, it could mean a potential shift in the future if the Russians would occupy this area around Vilcha specifically. And it's not really sure if the Ukrainians are still remain the presence between these both, like, advances, small advances. It could be a potential, like, I don't know how to call it, a can opener, like when the Russians would really establish control there, and they haven't yet, but this is where we have to look at in the coming days and weeks. There's a lot of open space behind that. When you zoom a bit out, just a bit, yeah, you can see the next larger town in the southeast is Bili-Kolodias. This is also an important hub, logistics hub. And between that and the agglomeration of Vovchansk, there's basically nothing. There's not a single house or something. Of course, there are tree lines. I just want to highlight that because, especially for drone crews, it can be like a bit uncomfortable. There's also this road in the middle where you can see the Russians could try to use some motorcycles up there, so the Ukrainians have to set up new defense perimeters. And yeah, in this open terrain, it's not that easy as if you have like these small towns where you have basements where you can hide from the enemy, start your drones. The last I want to pinpoint here, it's like the conclusion we are coming from: the Russians have thrown in some new forces or fresh forces, relatively fresh forces. The Ukrainians may also need some reinforcements. They have a very good unit there, which is defending the perimeter. It's the 57th Motor Race Brigade. They have like very good drone crew as well, the Murchikis. But I think those guys are doing fine, but they are just too thin. Maybe they need some reinforcements. That's what I would. That's my 2 cents on it, and that's basically also it with Vovchansk. The theater itself is not that important, but of course, if the Russians could get some more, like, with this initial gains, there is a lot of potential to advance and also to basically outflank the defense line the Ukrainians have established in the northeast, where you have all these small towns where like this is easy to hold, and it could potentially be outflanked. But we have to wait and see how the development is. I mean, maybe there's a counterattack in 1 or 2 weeks, and we are at the same situation as in November. Yeah, that's
Just a
Yeah.
little backstory. I mean, the Russian advance into Vovchansk initially went very badly. It's been a pain for the Russians for a very long time, and the Ukrainians managed to hold fairly well. But when it seems like when the Russians managed to cross the river, then something started collapsing. I can hear Andrew wants to say something.
It was when
Please go ahead.
they captured Tikha that everything went terrible. Because Tikha was kind of the flank, and Russia, they captured Tikha. We don't know exactly when. We know like when they entered it, but they probably have advanced pretty far out of Tikha, south into those houses down there. We don't know the exact extent because we get very, very little footage from over here. We generally think the situation there is worse than depicted. And that's true basically everywhere in Vovchansk. It's probably worse than depicted. When they captured Tikha, it broke the flank of Ukraine in Vovchansk, and it made it so that like resupplying and getting troops into Vovchansk became just increasingly difficult, and they eventually had to pull back. Russia has been doing just like crazy amounts of artillery shelling. Like it's a degree of artillery shelling that is reminiscent of 2022, where they are just erasing entire sections of everything. Like Vilcha is more or less like been destroyed at this point. They fired every single type of artillery that they have, whether it's tube artillery, just enormous grad barrages, like so many grads, and toss, and tons and tons of airstrikes, like just dozens, hundreds of airstrikes probably at this point. And we only get footage of a very small fraction of the things that happen. But when you look at like the satellite imagery, it's like it's devastation. It seems that their purpose was to completely destroy Vilcha, to make it so that Ukraine would have to withdraw from it, to make it like uninhabitable, so that they can bypass it and keep going down the highway. They got some troops there already. They have had troops in Vilcha. We don't know what happened to those troops. I think we only ever saw like 3 guys there, but I suspect that there's probably a lot more. And there might be like this whole section might be just a lot worse than depicted. It's hard to tell, and there's always like conflicting information. Like if you see over on the like just to the west of Vilcha, there's like that section that keeps flashing between yellow and blue. It's because like we had news that Russia had pushed into there, and then we had news that Ukraine cleared them out, and then we had news that Russia cleared out the Ukrainians. So it's just like really confusing. We don't firmly grasp what's happening in this area, except it's probably worse than we think.
Yep. Would you say that Vovchansk has also been under the same amount of fire?
Like this whole area is just getting erased. Like it really seems that Russia is preparing for a future attack, and by future, I don't suspect it's very far in the future. But then the next story that I imagine you're going to talk about is Kupiansk, right? So Kupiansk might completely throw a wrench in all of their plans. Because Kupiansk was part of their overall like military strategy here, and losing that, especially because like I don't think the Russians knew that they were losing Kupiansk, because they're like in their information bubble where they control Kupiansk apparently, and so I think they were building a military strategy based on them holding Kupiansk, which they don't hold. So it might change their strategy. But basically, we suspect that they're going to be pushing out of Vovchansk and out of Milova, which is a little bit to the east over there. It's closer to Kupiansk. And with the goal of pincering into Veliki Berluk. So that's Milova, and Veliki Berluk is the intersection of those three roads right there. I don't know why the map doesn't label it, but just south.
More south.
Yes, that three road intersection. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That's really. I don't know why. Like the map is like that town. Who cares? We're gonna label it suburbs instead of the actual town. But yeah, that town is of critical importance for the whole defense of this area. And if you go back to like 2022, Russia's plan for Kharkiv was to pull back to Veliki Berluk and hold that line. They wanted to hold a line that went from Kupiansk to Veliki Berluk to Vovchansk. And you see that there's kind of like this like major road that kind of follows that line that they intended to hold. But then, Ukraine did their whole counterattack that caught them off guard and made it so they couldn't hold that line the way they wanted to. And it seems that now they want to come back and recapture the thing that they always wanted in the first place, right? So yeah, it's a Vovchansk and Milova where they're building up forces, and then Ukraine captured Kupiansk. So yeah.
Yeah. Now I gotta reset the map. But Sirto, do you have any unit rotation updates from this area?
From Vovchansk, not really. It's basically been 57th motorized ever since the Russian offensive in 2024, leading there. There is a 72nd Mechanized Brigade, which rotated, I think, at the end of summer from the Horikove sector to this area and has been, I believe, on the western side of Vovchansk, but I'm not like 100% sure about it. And probably like several attached battalions that just is generally Ukrainian SOP. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Yep. I guess we're going to go to the big headline news, which is I would call it the cutoff of Russian forces from Kupiansk. So, Jay, we have been discussing this subject for a couple of months, me and you, just in private, and also we have had it on the stream. But yeah, things are moving in a more positive direction, and recently Ukraine kind of lifted a little bit of the OPSEC, which meant that Deep State published a new update on the map, where large parts of what was either marked as gray zone or under Russian control is now marked as liberated or gray zone, where Russia had control, and also reflected on this map, on Andrew's map. What do you have to say about this? Because you were very, very negative towards any counterattack here just a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, true. It's interesting, and it has some irony in it, because indeed in the stream, my position was more or less that I said the Ukrainians were too inactive and let the Russians like further into the city for like too long time, while Erlend had a bit like more positive stance that this is still reversible because of the geographic, which is true. And yeah, the irony is, when I think the last time I talked about it and said that it is rather too late for the Ukrainians, or they had been too inactive, they were actually preparing something, which is like very remarkable. And I think the first thing I want to highlight, cutoff is relative. Like, yes, in a sense, it seems like the Russians will be unable to reinforce the troops. It's like there's still Russian troops in Kupiansk, where we are like speaking, I would say, low digit numbers. But with the information we have, it's like I don't know how they want to reinforce the troops they have left there. Maybe I don't know, with the catapult. But like this is why really respect the Ukrainian operation, because it was very careful planned. Basically, it was a large organized counterattack from the northwestern part, from Radkivka and Tishankivka, to basically not spearhead is not really the correct, like it's not mechanized, it's all like small infantry troops, drone groups, but basically to cut off the Russians reaching the river, the Oskil. That was the plan, and it seems it has worked out. Personally, I was fascinated how good the OPSEC was. Yeah, like we always talk about OPSEC. Most people don't understand it, but in this, like for such kind of operation, it's very important, besides the planning, to let the enemy like unclear what you're preparing. And I think in terms of succeeding with that, like to hide what your plan is and what you're you have to gather the forces, prepare that, equip the troops. I think it's the most remarkable OPSEC event, I would say, since the very beginning of the Kursk offensive, like the initial Kursk opening. I think this is comparable, not in scale, of course, but in successful OPSEC, it's remarkably good. Oh, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the operation has been going on for a while. Probably when we were talking about this on stream last time, it was already happening, but even emphasizes even more the fact that the OPSEC has been very good. Yesterday there's been a lot of geos. I guess there's been a few more today as well.
Yeah, to like explain this a bit, these geos, like this is the consequence of the OPSEC. Like we, like people, OSINT community, I would say, like we can only work with what we have, and there was not like very few footage from Ukrainian units, besides the default ones that have been there before. And all, like most of these geolocations you can see, maybe you can even zoom in a bit into the city. Like this is not from yesterday. So like, this could be, or most of it is probably weeks, maybe even more than a month old. You can see, like here, you can see the with this geolocation, you can see the trees. This is probably, I don't know, early November, maybe mid-November-ish, as it looks like from the foliage. This was just all released now, as the units were able to release this footage. This Ukrainians in the center of the town. Yeah, very remarkable. Like some fun thing is it lines up very well with the Russians doing as well. You can see probably the Russian geos as well. A bit in the south. Yeah, this is interesting. I want to talk about this for a second because those guys mostly conducted long range drone strikes, like with fiber optics, and they went pretty far, like 10 or 15 kilometers behind the first line of own troops. Like they had some kind of decent deep strike capabilities, and that's what they posted. And now they post this. And this was probably one of the most, like, it was very interesting geolocation because it's basically in their own vicinity, what they still like try to claim that they control it completely. And they have like switched from like publishing footage with long range strikes to basically almost bomb their own, because this footage was also, sorry to call it, but weird. First they had some ISR, where they spotted some. It's also very recent, as you can see, with the snow on the top of the roofs. And they had a like decent ISR from Ukrainian infantry moving, like a small group. And what they then did is not bomb the buildings where the Ukrainians went inside, but just bombed a random building. I don't know, 200 meters from the ISR. So this is really like inconsistent. I don't know. The only reason the Russians publish something is they are like they want to just like throw random drone strike where they put a Molnia into a building, but this was not even a hit. Like, looks a bit desperate to me. That's my only comment I have, and that's why the reason why I made this geolocation, to show how close they are not to their own lines. And basically, we have to collect more, but it's a bit of low-key confirmation that the Ukrainian cut them off, basically.
Yeah, so just to go a little bit backwards in time, the Russians have been for a couple of months now claiming that Kupiansk has been liberated, and Putin has invited journalists to come and visit, etc. Obviously, the situation in Kupiansk was nowhere near safe enough for journalists from any of the sides coming and visiting here, and it hasn't been for several months. So this is
Erlend,
probably, yes?
go to October 31st or 21st, October 21st.
Yes.
You'll see something interesting.
Yes, the mechanized assault.
Yes.
2
Yeah,
MRPGs.
I remember.
This one?
No, north of the city.
Yes.
The
Was it
Russian drones.
21st?
Yeah. No, it's right there. Right there.
Yeah.
This was an attack that Ukraine did on October. Well, the first video came out October 21st. I don't know what day it was. So that's the latest that could have possibly happened. And look at where they are, and then compare it to the yellow zone that is today. And you can ask yourself, when did this become the yellow zone? And was it in October or even earlier?
Yeah, it could potentially be like, we don't know like how long the Russians are cut off, but yeah, it could be for a while.
The Butasov post I'm gonna mention later actually has pretty precise dates. So yeah. This was actually towards the end of the cutting off operation. It started in September.
Yeah. And the other thing is that Achilles came out with a information yesterday, and they said they began attacking the crossing points, including the tunnels, in April.
Context: the tunnels are like where the Russian tried to or traversed their infantry from the east part of the river to the west. It's in this area, and those tunnels are cut off. They can't use it anymore.
Yeah,
but yeah, the irony of this is that it seems like the Russians, as you mentioned earlier, Jay, that they either didn't know on the top what was actually going on the ground, and the propaganda machine just kept spinning and spinning and spinning. Sirdo, I thought we could go to you because I know you have some updates on the unit there.
Yeah. You can switch over to the slides. And to the first one, yeah. So basically, I'm gonna give a bit of an overview of what happened in and around Kupiansk since late September. Actually, the main new sort of piece of news from a Norbat perspective is that the 2nd National Guard Corps Khartia was deployed. Actually, it's at quarters mainly. And we have a Ukrainian journalist, Yuri Butasov, who you probably have seen making interviews since 2022, who joined Khartia in, I believe, last spring, and has been operating in this area. And he has put out a very extensive and explanatory post of what happened with dates included. So I'm basically going to just extract the information from that and put it on the map. So if we go back to September, this area fell under the North Group of Forces, which has changed, but I'm just going to go chronologically, and which is commanded by Major General Krasilnikov, who is commander of Operational Command North. On September 21st, a search and strike group based on the 2nd Khartia Corps was created, and I believe this is the first instance of something like this happening in Ukraine. I've never heard of this search and strike group term. and it's probably to counter specifically the new Russian tactics of dispersion and basically having these like 3-man teams just flood the front line. So we have basically this new grouping that is being created on the northwest of the city, and inside the city itself there is a tactical group in Kupiansk, which is commanded by General Solimchuk, which, as far as I'm aware, should fall under 10th Army Corps, which is basically in control of the overall sector. But I'm not 100% convinced that the tactical grouping falls under 10th Army Corps instead of the group of forces. But I mean, it's kind of a nitpicking at that point. So moving over to the next slide, we can see that the main elements under the search and strike group are not actually from Khartia itself. There is, I believe, a battalion tactical group or a similarly sized unit from Khartia, which is actually mechanized, as mentioned by Butazov. And the other main element is the 475th Assault Regiment, Code 9.2, which was created from a subunit of the 92nd Assault Brigade at the beginning of 2025 and has pretty much been in formation since then. And I think this gives kind of a sort of frame of reference to understand how long it takes to form and actually create a well-performing unit, because this unit has been highly praised in the past week or so for their performance in Kupiansk, which is a timeline of 6 months to a year. And obviously, this should be taken as an example by Ukrainian command when it comes to creating new unit or expanding, for example, the assault battalions, etc. Now, getting back to Kupiansk itself, the offensive operations began from the Butazov post again on the 24th of September, when the 475th liberated Tochnyi. From there, they moved together with the 4th Battalion of the 92nd Brigade to Kindrashivka on the 9th of October. And 2 days later, on 11th of October, the battalion tactical group from Khartia, or at least armory groups from it, liberated Radkivka. At this point, the Russian corridor to reinforce their elements inside the city was obviously already thinning out a lot, and Holubivka was sort of like the key settlement to probably hold for them to be able to still support their units inside the city. And a week or so later, the armored groups from Khartia were geolocated now, but we know that on the 21st of October, they were south of Holubivka on the Oskil River itself. So they had pretty much cut the Russians off up to the Oskil. So at this point, I think this is where the assault that Andrew showed us a few minutes ago kind of pictures in, as it was in that blue square north of Holubivka. And I believe from 1 or 2 data points of MIA soldiers that it was the company from Skala Regiment that Butazov mentioned was under the Khartia group. So basically they had this Skala company that I believe was committed to this sort of assault to maybe take Holubivka already. I'm not sure what the explicit goal was, or if this was even coordinated with the Khartia group. And this company tried this assault on Holubivka with some N113s. It did not go well. The vehicles were hit. I'm not sure if the Ukrainians actually consolidated their positions or were pushed back, but I think this is kind of where it pictures in the overall situation. So basically, at this point, on the 17th of October, and this is kind of a key event in the the larger picture, because there were a lot of sort of protests on Ukrainian social media about General Drapati not being mentioned as sort of the commander of this operation. And it turns out that, again, from Butazov's post, Drapati was put in charge of this area with the Joint Forces Task Group on the 17th of October. So pretty much when the operation was already sort of progressing and had already had its first successes. So it can kind of be stated that the main commander of this operation was Colonel Obolyensky, commander of the Khartia Corps, and the overall commanders in this area. Now at this point, so Drapati takes charge. It doesn't really make that much of a difference, although he is a very good commander and is generally recognized to be very skillful. Has saved actually Vovchansk, for example, in 2024, and sort of delayed the Russians substantially in Toretsk a few months later. But anyway, we are towards the end of October. As far as we know, the grouping sort of consolidates its positions and goes sort of on the defensive, as Russians are still trying to basically just trickle infantry, supplies, etc., through this sort of very small gap and to their troops in Kupiansk. There are a few additional sort of notes on the city itself if we move over to the next slide, and specifically to tactical grouping Kupiansk, which, as far as we know, has had like a bunch of basically unrelated units attached under it in classic Ukrainian style. Specifically, some elements that are not clear right now from the 125th and 127th Heavy Mechanized Brigades have liberated the Yubileyny micro-district along with some elements from Skala. And this is kind of a key area in the city because it's basically an entire city block of high-rises that helps control the entire area of the city, east and northeast of it. So it's kind of like a man-made dominating height. There have been other various special operations elements operating in the city that have posted some footage over the past 3 or 4 months, especially the 138th Center from the Military Police, which is kind of an odd unit to sort of use in this role, but has basically been like an SSO unit. And there's been obviously a bunch of others among SSO itself, SBU, court police, etc. There's a Freikorps too, which has posted a couple of, I think, videos in the past week, or maybe just one video, I'm not sure. And yeah, I think this basically gives a good overview of the units operating in the city. It's definitely, it's worth mentioning that the 116th and 14th Mechanized Brigades have been holding their sectors on the eastern bank of the Oskil for probably close to a year in the case of the 116th, and maybe since 2022 in the case of 14th. I'm not entirely sure right now. And yeah, these units are probably extremely under strength and have been doing like a lot of work to not let this sort of eastern bulge collapse after the Russians infiltrated the city itself. And yeah, I think this pretty much covers it. The kind of the chronological events in Kupiansk.
So I have a question for you, Sirdo. Would you say that Ukraine in this area of operations have solved the problems of rotations better the last few months than other parts of the front line, or is it irrelevant in this case?
I wouldn't really say so. I think it's been kind of more of a success of specific individuals and command teams being very deliberate in their actions and working towards a very specific goal with actually kind of limited resources, because there's not been major reinforcements of this area. Even this Hartia group doesn't have like a whole fully equipped or fully manned brigade under it. It's basically just battalion groupings that are being used very skillfully for very specific goals. As far as rotations go, there hasn't really been much. 10th Army Corps has basically had its brigades under it all this time, just holding the line. 14th and 116th being the most obvious ones and being shown in this picture, but also 43rd Mechanized is east of here, further in the sort of bulge east of the Oskil. And yeah, I think this operation has basically been the culmination of a lot of single battalion and task organized efforts rather than a systemic success.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, before we move on, I want to explain why Lubivka is really important. Because this area right here is it overlooks two valleys. Okay, there's the Osko River that everybody cares about, but there's actually probably an even more important waterway, of which I honestly can't remember what it's called. It's like Glenitsia or whatever. And that waterway, it goes straight east. You see that broken bridge right there that goes over the waterway, and it goes to Petropavlivka. And this waterway is really kind of the natural barrier that Ukraine is using for the defense in this area. So like what Ukraine likes to do is this natural barrier is their primary defense. It goes south. You see it goes it's like that green that goes through Petropavlivka. You see it kind of curve south, and
Okay, yeah.
there's a lake. Yeah. So yeah, it travels south like that. That's kind of the natural barrier. And Ukraine likes to hold a buffer on the other side just to make it easier to hold. But really, the critically important thing is Klubivka. The way the terrain is set up there is that it is the high point that, or maybe not the highest point, but it's like for this local area, I think you go a little bit south to get higher. But anyway, so it's the kind of the highest point here, Klubivka, and it overlooks both of these valleys. And the way the terrain is set up, you can pretty easily keep tanks in that area and have them basically cover both of these valleys. And the area north of that river to the east, Klinitsia or whatever it's called, it's like a wide open plain. So a tank can cover a lot of that too. So really, the tank's only worry is an FPV drone. So if you can figure out how to put a tank there without getting hit by a drone, you're pretty golden. And Ukraine was using that as a really kind of critically important defensive area. And recapturing it not only makes it easier to hold their side of the river because it's the high point and it overlooks like basically every road on their side of the Osko, but it also overlooks everything on the other side of the Osko.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how do you guys think that Ukraine should move forward to consolidate this and make sure that the Russians are not going to be able to infiltrate and capture pockets inside Kupiansk again? So if you have more comments to that, or even if
Ukraine has to capture Dvorichna, which is like
yeah.
They have to, like it's not really an option, if they recapture Dvorichna, then I think they can more or less hold this whole area. And also, we don't have any proof of anything that I'm about to say, but we believe that Dvorichna, the situation is much worse for Russia than mapped. We think they've already lost ground here, but we don't know where and how much. So
this was pretty much where it started to collapse in the first place, right?
More or less. I mean, it's like the main crossing point that they can use now that all of the other crossing points are gone. So the bridge there is long gone, just FYI. But yeah, they have to capture that. If they capture that, I think it's going to be fine.
Does any of you, Jay or Sirdo, have any other comments about the future of Kupiansk?
Not really. I think another focus should be on clearing the city itself, just making sure that there's no more three-man teams or DRGs or whatever they want to call them lurking around.
Yeah, not much to add. Yeah, actually, there's still Russians there, and probably low 300, 200 digits. I'm not sure. Yeah, and the job is not done yet, but I think when they achieve that, then they can consolidate and just hold there.
And question for whoever wants to answer this: how much of a blowback was this? Andrew, you mentioned earlier that taking Kupiansk was a key part of their strategy overall for the northern parts of the front line.
Well, you can see how important it was with Putin. Putin was really bragging about this. Like, this was like a big thing to him. I think a lot of people I've heard have suggested that Putin knew that they didn't control it and was using it to manipulate, like Trump or whatever. I don't think that's true at all. I think he was convinced they control it. I think this could have consequences in the Russian army when you lie this blatantly and have it blow back in your face to this degree. It's pretty embarrassing. I also suspect that they're going to. I mean, the Russian way is when you get embarrassed like this, you throw resources at it, which would be funny in my book if they started chucking resources here. This would be a terrible place for them to use resources. They could take really ridiculous casualties. So it would probably be in Ukraine's favor if they tried that. So, but the bigger picture is Veliki Berluk, I think, is the thing that they want in Kharkiv. They want to make it so that Ukraine is not at the Russian border. They want to push them all the way back so that they're not on the border anymore. And Veliki Berluk was like, it's a big enough town that you can really use it as a primary hub, a military hub. So it has lots of crossroads. I think there might be a train station. There's all sorts of industrial stuff going on. It's big enough. It's not like the biggest place in the world. It's not that big, but it's big enough for what they need to run your military out of in this area. And I think this is really what they wanted, and they wanted to connect it to Kupiansk. And then maybe, so like this, I viewed this as kind of like a shorter term goal, like something they could do in spring, and then maybe start pushing down towards Izium in the summer. Because obviously they want to attack Slovyansk and Kramatorsk from both the east and the north. But losing Kupiansk really kind of, it doesn't stop their ambitions, but it just makes it harder. Because Kupiansk was like an anchor point that they could have used as like a leverage to like push everything south.
Yeah. And to be clear, this is not an easy area to operate in. For the Russians, it's not easy for the Ukrainians either, but to move troops into Kupiansk has been very challenging for the Russians. And if they decide to mass attack, that I agree that is not necessarily a good idea. They may gain something on territory, but yeah, this area is not a favorable area to attack in at all. Yeah, I guess we are going to move down. We're going to move all the way down to Liman. Jay, what do you have to say about Liman for the last few weeks?
Not that much. Yeah, obviously, like the Russians are like tightening the gap around the city. It's as we talked about logistic hubs. Like Liman is very important. It's basically the center of the Ukrainian forces. They're like they cannot really afford to lose it fast. And yeah, what the Russians slowly did is in the south they slowly advanced from the Serbiansky forest, which they like occupied in the fall, and advanced towards Yampil and Dibrova, and the pace of the advance is relatively slow. The other advance is in the north, which is coming from like how's this? I have to look it up by myself. Like from north of Stavki, basically, yeah, from this area, Shandriholova, this is the other thrust. The Russians there are trying to reach the Oskil, obviously, and yeah, they want to cut off Liman. It's not that they want to like rapidly push into the city, but rather to advance on the flanks. And that's mostly it from a operational perspective. The southern thrust from the Russian is also a bit pain for the next operational goal they have, and that's Seversk, because this thrust out of the forest, obviously also threatens the flank of the Ukrainian troops that have been defended Seversk and the area around. And that's more or less the perspective I would put it in.
Yeah, thank you. Sido, do you have any specifically for Liman, or should we move to?
Yeah,
Seversk?
something I'd like to highlight, if you switch over to the slides and go to the next one, I think, is the 60th Mechanized Brigade was kind of like redeployed in force recently, probably around at some point around November, and recaptured Stavki on the 1st of December, which I think was a kind of a somewhat surprising turn of momentum against the Russians, given that they've been advancing gradually, but they've been advancing in this area pretty much since the spring. And 60th Brigade was kind of a particular example because it joined the 3rd Army Corps, so obviously based on 3rd Assault Brigade, the kind of famous brigade. It joined, I think, in early summer. And by September, we had some news articles mentioning that they had been largely rotated out of the front line and in recovery, and pretty much being retrained from scratch by 3rd Assault Brigade instructors, which I think was quite a bit of a unique effort from the 3rd Army Corps. And they also changed commander and put in charge, I think, Major Rohozyuk is his name, who was formerly from 3rd Assault Brigade. And I think this is all a massive effort that 3rd Army Corps is kind of doing to properly form its brigade, and it's doing its brigades, and it's doing the same thing with the 125th Heavy Mechanized right now, which is largely in recovery and being recreated, basically. And seeing that the 60th Brigade has now been redeployed, and in probably its first month of substantial and real operations, it has recaptured a town. Like it's a small advance on the front line, but it's kind of a good indicator, I think, for what proper training and proper preparation by very experienced instructors can kind of result in.
I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you feel like the Ukrainians have managed the rotation better here?
Yeah, in this case, I think it has been pretty decent. I'm not entirely sure who has been holding the sector like during the summer. I know that 60th Brigade wasn't entirely rotated out. It was probably battalion by battalion rotation, and some elements were always like deployed in this area. The advances were on the north of this sector during the summer up to Novoselivka, which you can see there in the map. And I believe that was 66th Brigade sector. And that is another quite problematic brigade that is not under 3rd Army Corps, and that I hope to kind of see replaced in the future by the 125th, so that the 3rd Army Corps can have its proper complement of brigades deployed in its sector.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any more comments about Liman? I guess everyone wants to talk about Seversk. So we're going to move to Seversk, and I'm just going to go back 2 weeks and see if I can show that the Russians have advanced. They've taken more or less control of at least half of the city, and an absolutely bizarre event happened on Friday, where the Russians celebrated what they say, of course, is the capture of Seversk with fireworks. It is one of the most bizarre videos I've ever seen from this war. Just showing the video here. Yeah. Andrew, what do you have to say about this? Because we all reacted.
It's just It's so offensive. Like, think of the civilians who live here, because there are still civilians who live there, and they've been terrorized by artillery shelling and bombing from the Russians for 3 years now. And then you do this? Like, are you joking? Like, are you trying to stroke their PTSD at this point? Are you mocking them? Like, what is even the purpose of this? Like, and also, just on another level, like the Russian units who captured Siversk are pretty notably terrible. They're some of the just absolute bottom of the barrel units that Russia has. So I guess this is like the one accomplishment they might ever get in their lives, so they have to live it up a little bit. But it's pathetic.
I have a question about that. Like, when my first impression was also like, this is super weird. Also, never seen it. But did they like? Is there did they show it on state TV or something, or present it to the like domestic media, or like is there a reason to do that? That's what I try to figure out.
I have no idea. I didn't look, but it's maybe, I don't know. It's just so bizarre. Look at this. It's like, what are you doing? Like,
the city is being slowly completely destroyed, and that's what they're celebrating, I guess.
It's not really a city anymore. Like, there are some high-rise buildings, like very ruptured. It's most of like this is like a frontline town for like 2-3 years. So the Russians shelled it in the last airstrike it like in the last 2 years. It's not a place where you want to live.
Yeah,
you can see all the leveled high rises there.
Yeah, I don't think there's any building that isn't severely damaged left there.
Yeah, almost none.
Yeah, back to the map. Other than that absolutely bizarre event, obviously the Ukrainians have retreated or been pushed back.
Yeah.
What is the future of this area? Because it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, let's talk about the status quo ante, and I think map is very good, but I would say there's only one geo there, but this basically proves that the 54th Mech on paper also a very good unit, but they are like understrength and they're like, I don't know, a year at that sector. I would suspect they have pulled out the last elements of the town and fell back to like better terrain, which is good, I think, because Siversk is in a kind of a bowl. Yeah, you have heights all around the city in the east and in the west, and we will probably have soon more like confirmation that there are no Ukrainian elements left in the town, which is not bad news in that sense, because as I said, they could like draw back to more preferable terrain, and also if they would try to maintain a presence there, there's a real risk to get like outflanked, not in a like big maneuver, but also with small teams from the north. Yeah, Russians are already close there at the Oskil, or also from the south, from Zvanivka, or like where the Russians recently advanced to Sviatopokrovsk. So I rather see this as positive news. It was not like not possible to any longer hold Siversk, because when you see how the front line shapes, it's the most eastern part the Ukrainians have been holding. And yeah, that's why I come to the conclusion it's not really bad news when the Ukrainians left Siversk. It also looks like a planned withdrawal, and it's not we like last stand thing. So I don't see it negatively. But yeah, what are the others like thinking about that?
Really, what matters is that southern push out of like Fedorivka and whatever, moving that yellow thing.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that in the south. Yeah,
this is terrible. Like, this is legitimately really, really bad that Ukraine is letting them push this far. if they consolidate those positions, it is horrifically awful. And the reason why is because the terrain around Fedorivka was very favorable to the defender. You could defend it with fewer guys. Once you get to the other side of that ridgeline, the number of defenders required to defend these areas is going to go up, and Ukraine doesn't have more defenders. If they had more, they wouldn't have lost all this ground. So they're going. It's going to be like just another one of those problems where every inch Russia goes forward, Ukraine needs more men, and they don't have more men, which means Russia advances faster. So it's the south is way worse than Siversk. Like, I would rather totally abandon Siversk and defend the south. They're not, and I can't explain why. Like, personally, I would move all of my any reinforcements I have, send them there, because you're getting really close to Slovyansk, like really close. And if Slovyansk is really the thing that you're saying is like so important, that, and also Kramatorsk, like if these are the areas that you're saying are so important to you, that, you know, we cannot lose these cities, we have to defend them, they're so important, they're like a critical part of Ukraine, you know, they're like the last bastion of Donbass, you know, like all these people who lost all of their homes and all of the other cities in Donbass and have relocated their lives to Slovyansk and Kramatorsk because they refuse to leave Donbass, and these are the only places left. And you're just letting Russia walk there at this point because you're not defending these critically important ridgelines. I don't get it. This is not something that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I pulled up the topographical map because you can very clearly see that there is a ridge line that Ukraine has been defending and using as one of their main features of defense, and an advance into that ridge line is
and
scary.
not only is it a ridge line, but that southern part of that ridge line has three overlapping peaks that Ukraine held, all three of them, and they've now lost, I think, two of them. And those overlapping peaks made it so that if the Russians attack one, the other two can defend that one. And that was very useful. But now they've apparently lost two. So the Ukraine only has one left. And that's now Russia can use that advantage against them. And it's going to push them back. And I don't understand what Ukraine is planning here. Like, what's going on? I would love to have some sort of explanation for their strategy here, because I don't see any logical interpretation of what they're doing.
I think they may not have the resources right now. Like it seems kind of similar to Huliaipole, where for, I don't know, 1 or 2 months, no one really cared about what was going on in that area, and Russia's just advanced like 10 kilometers because no one sends big reinforcements there, and it just goes on.
Then maybe they shouldn't have attacked Kupiansk.
Yeah,
maybe they should have defended somewhere important instead of attacking Kupiansk.
Yeah. Sirdo, do you have any unit rotation
in this area?
Yeah,
in this area there's not really any rotations. I think if you go back to the main map,
the first one,
no, just not on the slides, on the actual control map. Yeah. I think it's worth kind of explaining for the viewers what the units here are, and if you zoom out a bit, we can kind of like an overview from north to south. It's basically 81st Air Mobile around Yampil, Dronivka, Zakitne, then 54th Mechanized, then 10th Mountain Assault Brigade around Fedorivka, and then at Vasyukivka it's 30th Mechanized and 56th Motorized. And I think it's probably a good idea to focus on 81st Air Mobile and 54th Mechanized up north, because they've been deployed in those areas for, I think, probably close to 2 years. 81st Air Mobile actually from 2022 potentially. They were the main holders of Bilohorivka further to the east, and they have just been pushed back a few kilometers after literally 3 years of being deployed. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think this area is just one of those areas where it seems kind of forgotten by higher command, and it just kind of goes on the way the Russians want for a few months, and then it becomes critical, and command notices it, and reinforcements are basically like flooded to the area, and it kind of fixes itself. But yeah, it's not obviously it's not an optimal way to manage these situations.
Yep. Okay. I guess we are going to move all the way to Pokrovsk, or no?
Yeah, very short Konstantinivka, but there's like very minor. I think it's important to highlight if you zoom in a bit. Yeah, there's good position. Like the Russians managed to. They don't have a foothold, but to like with their usual tactics of like what we call the three guys push into the eastern part of Konstantinivka, which I would like. It's not new, but it's like a new development since the last stream we did frontline segment update. It's not alarming, but yeah, this is also like a bit of the can opener. This is like if you look at the map, it's relatively predictable where you see where the Russians will try to push, and it's this large gray zone they established. They still don't control Ivanopilia. We had very good geolocations from there, which were kind of recent, which proved that. And yeah, that's basically it about Konstantinivka. It's relatively holding well, of course. Also a lot of FPV activity and airstrikes and all these fires from the Russian. And yeah, I think we can go to Pokrovsk now.
Yep. Oops. So I think I'm going to start with Citadel because there's a lot of things that has been happening with units here. So
you should also.
Yeah.
Yep, you can switch over to slides. So there's been a couple of brigade-sized redeployments here that I'd like to mention. The first one was in mid-November, so it's been a while now, and it was the 35th Marine Brigade, which previously was deployed south of Novopavlivka, but I believe they had a few weeks of rotation and recovery between that deployment and going to Pokrovsk. And we actually, like, basically there's a big hole in the data for all of October, pretty much. And then we have on the 1st of November, there was an Iskander strike on an award ceremony that was being held by the Unmanned Systems Battalion of the brigade in Dnipro city, and which actually resulted in quite a few casualties and was quite publicized. And the commander of the battalion was, I believe, removed and put under investigation. So that was kind of decently handled, but still very unfortunate that commanders are still holding ceremonies that close to the front line. So I think that was also an indication of the fact that the brigade was probably largely not deployed. And then, yeah, pretty much on the second week of November, we started seeing the first deployments of this of the battalions of this brigade in Pokrovsk, specifically northeast of the city. And this is most likely in like sort of part of an effort to support the units that were half surrounded, half not really, like basically the 25th and 38th brigades south of Mirnograd. And we've seen, if you move to the next slide, we've seen 3 of the 4 Marine battalions of this brigade being deployed in this area and doing drone strikes pretty much all over the northern and northeastern outskirts of Pokrovsk. So yeah, I think this is kind of it shows an effort that there's been to reinforce these units and probably try like an attempt to keep the passage open for longer and suppress the Russians from outside the semi-encirclement, if we can call it that. There's also a confirmation post by the 7th Air Assault Corps, which is in charge of the defense of the whole city, which mentions that the 35th Marine Brigade is under their command. On the next slide, there's the second rotation, which I think is quite interesting. The 95th Air Assault Brigade, or most of its battalions, were redeployed from Sumy to the Dobropilia breakthrough, Volodymyrivka, Shachove area in, I think, September, if I remember correctly. And I'm not entirely sure if they actually had the brigade headquarters there as well, or if they were operating under 82nd, who is just on the east of that. But either way, their 2nd battalion is still there, presumably as of now. I think the last data point is at the beginning of December. But 2 of the battalions have rotated to Katline, southwest of Pokrovsk, which has been a town that's been held by the 152nd Jaeger Brigade for quite a long time, since like last winter. And I think this is probably in an effort to reinforce the western flank of Pokrovsk, and specifically the big highway that you can see in orange on the map, because obviously it's going to be kind of a key area for potential units that need to pull out. If we move to the next slide, we can also see very interestingly that the okay, that I may have missed one slide. Okay, yeah, you can go back and I'll just explain from here. The 76th VDV division, the Russian division, was redeployed to this area like 1 or 2 weeks after the 95th and attempted a couple of motorized assaults, which I'm sure Jay will cover in a few minutes, towards Hryshine. And I think that the 95th Brigade's redeployment may have been in anticipation of the 76th, but obviously this cannot be proven from outside or from like open sources. And yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting event. So yeah, I think this pretty much covers what I had in terms of units for Pokrovsk. In the city itself, there's a Scala operating. I think it's 1st Battalion and maybe more. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I guess we'll have more questions, or you might, shoot in comments, because there's more to talk about for this area. Jay, what is for you?
Yeah, first of all, these are really interesting rotations, both from the Ukrainian and the Russian side as well. I think 76 VDV was very long time in Kursk until it got redeployed. It's also like a very interesting theory to say that the Ukrainians might have anticipated that they have to, like, it would be a very good sign if that is the case. Of course, we don't know. It's speculation, but it's a very interesting thought. It's proactive defense. Play smart and not get rooted while being inactive. And about this attack from the 76 VDV, I think there were 2 in the last days. This motorized assault what is it in late 2025? It's a mix of buggies, other light vehicles, and also loaded with troops. And what they basically did was like an effort to push over the main road towards Hryshine, and they tried it twice, and the result was devastating, to put it mildly. It was a very concentrated effort of deploying fires into these columns. I think if you zoom in a bit, like, you can't see it on a map, but where the Russians really got hit, and this is the usual example, is at a choke point. There are several like areas which are very like choke pointish from the Ukrainian side, where you have like a street or a small gap in a very large anti-tank ditch, where the Russians have to push through if they want to advance, and that's where they really stack up the casualties. Like these choke points are very valuable for Ukrainian defense. And I don't know about the penetrations. It was various shelling we can see here. DPI. How is it called, Erlend? Can you explain how this is correctly spelled?
DPICM.
DPICM shelling, yeah.
Dual purpose improved cluster munition.
Dual purpose improved cluster ammunition. Okay. Yeah, the most important thing, it's cluster ammunition. It's very good. It has an area of effect. It's you you will have high casualties if you get hit by this. It's especially designed for this kind of use. And yeah, as we can see, there is a lot of events with all these buggies and four-wheelers burning down. It looked very impressive. Actually, there was no real armor committed there, but as you can see here with all the geolocation, this is a choke point. And I'm not sure why the Russians took the effort to do this kind of stupid assaults on like a street. You have to ask the commander, but obviously it was very, very unsuccessful. It was like not this kind of let's advance with small teams into wood lines, but it was the opposite. Let's rush into the road, and yeah, you can see the outcome, which was very bad for the Russians.
I just want to point out that I can't really show the video because YouTube would not like that. But in this smoky area here, Ukraine detonated some sort of IED or explosives under the road, which created a huge crater. Obviously, quite a well-planned defensive position or choke point. You can call it a kill zone in military terms. Obviously, a planned fire point for them, yes. And the Russians still sent in how many columns of
yeah, that was the first column was just devastated, and then they sent another one. We just saw the last one. I think the other was, I was very busy at work, so don't pin me down on a day, but it is not like it was a few days ago. Maybe.
Now the first one I think was 10th, and then again on the 13th.
Yeah, 3 days in between. I don't know, rinse and repeat, and yeah, a lot of guys went sleepy there. The other area which is also important to talk about is Mirnorad. I will have a little rant here probably. This area is depicted here all as gray zone. What we know is there are some elements of the 38 Marines, Ukrainian 38 Marines, still being in the city. And we discussed a lot, like there was a lot of discussion, is it good to like let them there as long? A few weeks ago, you also had the 25th separate air assault in the south of Mirnorad, or between Mirnorad and Pokrovsk, and they withdrew. And now there was a heated debate: is it like good to like even hold that place if you don't have no real logistics or means to rotate properly? With like you have Russians between Mirnorad and this road where you can see there were some Ukrainian losses if you zoom a bit in. Like the trouble for the Ukrainians started exactly there between Mirnorad and Pokrovsk, this area Rivne, Svitle, and these pig farms in the north of Svitle. This was critical to like hold it open for the Ukrainians so they could rotate in and outside of Mirnorad. And what we know is it's all a gray zone. Like you could be ambushed if you leave Mirnorad. But the rent here starts where like some journalists, I don't know, some people claimed the Ukrainians had a huge amount of soldiers, like the numbers were like 2,000 or 3,000, which is I don't know where you pull that numbers from. Maybe someone saw, oh, there's a brigade in Mirnorad, and brigade transforms into 2,000 or 3,000 people. We discussed it internally with also with people here on the panel, with Sirdo, with other awesome people, and we all came to the same conclusion that these numbers are hugely like exaggerated. I wouldn't even say the Ukrainians have a tenth of this mentioned numbers actually there. Obviously we can't know, but the estimates, the reasonable estimates are very low triple-digit numbers, maybe even less. Like we talk maybe about 100 of soldiers, and that all of them are present. Like you have one group that rotates in and one rotates out, and it's really, I don't know, if you're a paid journalist and you come to that conclusion. I ask myself, what do these people like? What kind of research are they doing? like to have these assumptions or estimates and go out with that in the public is very blunt and very misleading. That's where like the awesome people get a bit disappointed. I mean, these people are getting paid for their jobs. Why do such like totally false assumptions? Also, when you have a very large audience on social media, I don't understand it. Like the fact is, there are a few Ukrainians, most likely from the 38 Marines, still inside Minorad in a very small space. My personal stance is try to rotate them out if possible and draw back. I think they have done a lot to delay the Russians. They are still inflicting casualties, which is good. But these conclusions, it's like it was not only one journalist. I heard it several. I think a very well-known German journalist had numbers, but that were totally out of space. And yeah, these people have influence. It gets a misleading impressions what the Ukrainian military is doing there. I wouldn't say what they are doing there is what I appreciate, but when you talk about the numbers, I'm sorry to say it so, but that's bullshit.
Yeah, that's giving also ammunition to the Russian propagandists. Whenever this falls, they're going to say, hey, look at the Western journalists. They said there were 3,000 Ukrainians there. We have now captured them all.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Good point.
But yeah, rather than rotate them, I would pull them out.
That's what I meant. Yeah, semantics, you're right. Yeah, not rotate neutral. Just try to exfil the guys who are still there, the soldiers, and yeah, that would be the best you could probably achieve.
Yeah, I think the key element is it's not as easy as just pull out, because pulling out might mean that like half your group becomes a casualty, and then the other half needs to tend to those casualties. So maybe someone has got hit by shrapnel in the leg and they can't walk. So that's like 2 people that need to support them. Like it's a huge mess. And I think like in general, there has been a tendency in the past from the Ukrainian command to not retreat until the last moment. Obviously, Avdiivka was probably the most well-known example of this. But the fact that a withdrawal hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that the intention or the plan isn't there. Like it might even require action on the flanks by like several battalions, for example, to allow a rotation like this. So yeah, it's a very complex scenario.
Yeah, I recently heard an interview with a soldier whose brigade is operating in Mirnograd. I guess that's the Marine brigade. And he said basically that there is no vehicle that can move in and out of Mirnograd without being hit by drones, and that's been the situation for many, many weeks. All resupplies have been done either with UGVs or aerial drones for weeks now, and very few people have been able to move in and out on foot, and I guess in the cover of the weather for most parts. So the situation is really, really difficult and has been for a very long time in Mirnograd now. And from my perspective, it seems like an untenable position to hold over time. Hopefully the Ukrainians manage to create a corridor for a less dangerous retreat than what we are describing right now. I wanted to continue a little bit with the choke point thing, because I need to be careful about what I show on stream. But
there's one going. One choke point we definitely shouldn't like.
Yeah, but I just want to show it on the map with terms to geolocations. Yeah, there's so I guess the video started to come out around the shift of the month. I cannot push any of these because there is a lot of sleepy Russians, but this is an example where the Russians sent an enormous amount of infantry to take over basically a ditch, to move past the ditch, and there's been a lot of footage, both from the Ukrainians and also Russians, that have been filming this area, that shows an enormous amount of casualties just from one single crossroads. I do not remember to have ever seen so many casualties in one place ever, actually. Yeah. Courtesy by Magyar Birds, I guess.
Interesting was to see. We can talk about in the stream. I think there's nothing wrong. Some of the Russian soldiers, which like reinforcements, who had to like pull through this anti-tank ditch or this gap in this anti-tank ditch. The anti-tank ditch is deep. It's like, I don't know, deeper than a human being. And some of them just jumped into the ditch to loot the dead comrades. Was an interesting detail. At least.
I think the ditch goes here, more or less.
Yeah, I think the specific position should be like north of that dark tree line, southeast of Novotoretsk. You have those two clear, somewhere around there.
No, Erlend got it right. It's south of this
here.
road crossing.
Oh, there
no,
might be.
no.
There might. Oh, yeah, because there's more than one.
Yeah, but the one we are talking is a bit in the east, and you have a road from the south. Like there's a T crossing there where they have the drones. There's the anti-tank ditch. Here, south of that road from the east and west. Yeah, that's where it is.
So if you want to check any of this footage out, go to Ukraine Daily Update and to the 29th and forward, and click the little icons. I cannot show it on stream because there's a lot of sleepy Russians.
It's very explicit footage. Like people should be careful if they want to see that. There's a lot of casualties on one place.
Yeah. Are there any more comments about this area of operation from anyone in the panel? Nope. Okay.
I think we're through. Yeah.
I gotta have to ask Sido, what is the next on your slides?
Yeah, there's the last one about 67th Mechanized.
And that's the area here, right?
A
bit in the north, Erlend.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this one. This one's good.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically another brigade that I wanted to kind of highlight because it got kind of recommitted in force probably around November is 67th Mechanized Brigade. And the story is kind of similar to the 60th Mechanized, except without the 3rd Army Corps retraining the brigade. Basically, this brigade had been employed in this area for a long time until the summer. Then at some point, probably in early autumn or maybe around September, most of it was rotated out. Some elements remain here. In the meantime, the Russians had a bit of a breakthrough just south of this because of major command issues and the rotation of the 110th Mechanized, which I believe we discussed the last time I was on stream. Anyway, the 67th was kind of reformed. It got a new commander, who I believe is Lieutenant Colonel Shaptala. He's quite experienced, though I can't I think it might have been from 117th Heavy Mechanized Brigade, but I'm not 100% sure. And then it got redeployed in mass, sort of around November, and in this sector that we can see here. And if we move over to the next slide, we can also see that they had a counterattack on the 6th of December in Tychy, retaking it, which is kind of like another example of when Russian momentum can be broken through or at least slowed down by deliberate action from well-executed attacks and just generally units that can coordinate their resources well. So yeah, currently the brigade is holding Arestopil and is pretty much the front line is probably on the river that you can see around Tikha, which I think is the Vovcha. This map I've used here is from November, so there were a bit more advances, or it might have actually been from October. Most of the brigade's battalions have been deployed. It has kind of restructured. It had quite a bit of a strange structure in the past because it came from the Ukrainian Volunteer Army and had some oddly named battalions. Like, it didn't have a first mechanized battalion anymore. It had, I think, second and third mechanized, then second rifle battalion. It was a bit of an organizational mess, and it seems it's being streamlined, or it has been streamlined. And it's an example of a redeployment that goes pretty well, and units that can sort of stabilize their front lines by having a few weeks or a few months of recovery and proper preparation of the command team, is what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. I found some airstrikes 28th of November, and subsequently Ukrainians struck the center or the town with a lot of drones, and since then there's not much geolocated in the area though.
Yeah, some notes about that. It's like a very vast area, but also with the geolocations, there is often no footage, or it's hard to find. And this area is hard to cover. If you had like 100 of geolocators, of course not, but resources are limited. I think they are not really like the Russians were advancing in this area at some pace, rather slow pace compared to the zone in the south. There were only few notable events. I think the Ukrainians made some small tactical operations where one or two units combined, and we know they took some a reasonable amount of prisoners in Novopavlivka, a bit in the northeast. Novopavlivka was very stable sector, as I said the last time, and since then the Russians tried a lot of pushes also over the river with mechanized, and they failed. This was all last month in November and October, and the Ukrainians managed a very proper defense sector, and then one push got through, and it was a big push with a lot of vehicles and also troops on the vehicles. The Ukrainians tried to counter it with drone attacks and also with small infantry groups, where they made those 20-30 prisoners. But the consequence is still that Novopavlivka is more or less a gray zone, since this one push got through. That's mostly I would say about Novo. Did I miss something, Andrew? I'm not sure.
Well, the thing is that we in this general area, I'm not talking about any specific town. The Russians, the way they're advancing, is not immediately sustainable. So they kind of push forward a bunch of infantry, just kind of hope for the best. It's not. It's a sort of advance that Ukraine can easily crush if they have the resources to do it. And in some places they do have the resources, and other places they don't. So a lot of these advances could be reversed if Ukraine had the guys to come in and
manpower
and push Russia out. Because you see the stories of these sorts of dudes where they're I was walking for 2 months and then I found myself in a town. It's okay, that's your offensive apparently. So so that's kind of the way I think of it anyway.
In that, we often talked about porous front lines in the past, and this is very open terrain in general. And so this is all thinly manned. It's also the Russians don't have a lot of guys in that area, so it's all very thin in that area. And when we go further to the south, I think it was the same in Orestopil. Also, the Ukrainians had a small operation where they made some prisoners as well. But I think the most notable event, and we talked about it in the last time, I think, did we? Is that the Russians actually, when we go to Huliapol area, yeah. Can you zoom out? Sorry, can you zoom out again? I'm not fully there. The most notable that was basically that the Russians reached the road in the north, more like towards Pokrovsk. Yeah, this is still contested. We don't really know. This is all like where these flag games happen, but the question is it consolidated? I would say not yet, but there were several pushes towards the road. So the Ukrainian defense was not doing very good, I would say. Also, we had news today that it is not only the northern push that happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it's not depicted on the map when you go to the north of Huliapol to the road. Where's Vavarivka. I think there was flag raising today in Vavarivka. Of course, small Russian infantry groups. Unsure if consolidated, but they maintain to send some guys there. And it's not depicted on the map because the first geolocation came today. So we will be probably on the next updates visible. But yeah, most notably is that the Russians they advanced quite significantly compared to other frontline sections. And all of this east of Huliapol, all these small villages, these are really not even villages. These are more like hamlets mostly. Besides, I think there is also Uspenivka, this area, this was a bit more like densely, like still rural, but more densely. And they captured, pretty quickly. The resistance was rather unorganized. We heard stories. I think this is, where I would have Sirdo's opinion also, like the command and control seems to not work very properly there. Also, the coordination between the units has seemed to fail sometimes. So then you have a small unit that holds, and the adjacent unit had to withdraw, and it's not communicated, and then you have basically some kind of gap the Russian could bypass, and I think almost encircle the unit that hold its presence, if I understood it correctly.
Yeah, on command and control, just a small update that I think happened about a month ago or so. This area used to be under the control of the 20th Army Corps, which is to the north, and had a massive sector and had issues in command. It had like 2 commanders were placed in the past 3 months, etc. And it was put under the command of the 17th Army Corps, which is west of here, and whose sector goes to Orikhiv and Stepnohirsk, so basically to the Dnipro. I think it happened in maybe late November, middle of November. So I'm not sure if we will see the results in the next few weeks. But yeah, it's something worth mentioning.
There's a question from the chat. If Huliapol will hold through 2026. 2026 is a long year ahead. I'm not sure even if Huliapol will hold through 2025 at this point.
Yeah, I would have rather the same stance when you see it, and the map is very accurate. The Russians have already entered the eastern part of the town, and also push from the north east from Zatishia. The town is getting leveled rapidly. You see all these icons there, and you can go on the days back, and you have these kind of airstrike or toss and shelling that happens on a daily basis. It's very intense. They're also trying to disrupt Ukrainian logistics with drones mostly. And so I would say for the defenders, it's very difficult because usually if you have the Russians inside a town, it's very hard, or it takes a very coordinated effort, and you need resources to repulse them. And I don't think we will see that happen. And I think it will not hold until 2026 or long into 2026, simply because the Russians were able to advance that relatively rapidly towards the situation which they are now, where they can try to infiltrate the town already.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
highly
don't-
likely they'll try to open up the western front of Kyiv soon.
From Myrna?
That area has pretty
Yeah.
much been dead for years, and I wouldn't be surprised if Russia tried to start up another pincer, basically.
I don't think Ukraine is intending to hold Ulipola. I think they want to try to hold Pokrovsk. That's kind of where they are at this point, which is not a good place to be. This is like a really pessimistic outlook on the situation, especially because it's already under threat. But I think that's kind of more where they're at. They're like Hulipola is it's like it would have been nice to hold it, but they kind of like that's out the window at this point. So I don't think that's really their strategy. I think they more want to hold the road north of Hulipola, and it's not because the road is important. It's just because it's kind of conveniently placed. I think they're going to try to cling to that road, and if that road can't hold, then there's kind of a parallel string of settlements to the west of the road that they'll try to hold. And I think that parallel string is more what they intend to hold long term. So I am very concerned about what's going on here. It is really bad, and you can't really sugarcoat how bad it is. It's really bad. I think Ukraine, their priorities right now are bizarre. Like they have way too many resources and Pokrovsk and not enough here and not enough in Siversk. So I don't know how Ukraine can fix this at this point, because their resources are poorly allocated. I think Ukraine fell for a trap that I think a lot of people saw the trap coming. I think even Ukraine saw the trap coming, and they still fell for it. So the trap being Russia pushed a whole bunch of resources towards Pokrovsk, and they put like all their VDV there. They like stacked up all this armor, and they're like, we're going to attack, we're going to capture it. Oh yeah, hoorah! So they did all that, and Ukraine's response was, okay, well, we're going to defend it then. So they put all their like resources into defending it, which was the wrong decision. The correct decision would have been, okay, fine, you can take it, and we'll defend everything else. Instead, Ukraine said, okay, we'll defend that and defend nothing else. So this is a situation where it's a terrible situation. So I don't know. Somehow Ukraine has to get those resources out of there and redistribute them to places that matter, like this. But currently they're trying to figure out how to get out of Mirnograd without, losing all their Marines or whatever. So I'm not happy with this situation. I find it very scary. It's very bad. And it's incredibly dangerous, because if Russia is able to break through this line and Ukraine cannot contain them, then we're getting into a situation where the city of Zaporizhia is under threat, the city of Pavlohrad is under threat, and the city of Dnipro is under threat. And those are three places that Ukraine cannot lose, or it's like war ending, kind of. Maybe not literally, but it's incredibly bad if those three cities get lost. And you just can't play around with that. That's playing with a with a doom scenario, and they're kind of like making light of it, and focusing on political objectives of trying to hold Donbass, although you can see they're not even trying to hold Donbass because they're not defending Slovyansk and Kramatorsk. They're only defending parts of Donbass that don't matter. So I don't get it.
Yeah, I was going to say this next topic of discussion is basically this whole belt going down from Pokrovsk and all the way to Zaporizhia.
Yeah, the belt can it will just be bypassed. It's also like Ukraine had they have very good defenses on the south against the south, and again there were similar situations before, also especially in the south where the good defense lines, which are easy to hold, like the main advantage is you don't need a lot of resources or like people, soldiers holding it. These are like well prepared places, but it will be bypassed from this like push from the east towards Hulyapol. Yeah, it's also rather like a bit sad note.
Yeah.
The good note is if you continue like in the south, it's very static. Like it's interesting. The Russians, for example, claim, like several mill bloggers, or like claim that they have advanced into Novodanilivka. That's like the one town they hold before Orikhiv, and these are just claims. I know there's no evidence of it. Same goes with Mala Tokmachka. There were also some mechanized efforts from the Russians, which did not bear fruits. And it's basically mostly the same all over the south. The only place of notice, of attention, is obviously there in the utmost western part in Stepnohirsk, and this area has to be like the Ukrainians cannot concede a lot of ground, because what, like as Andrew emphasized before, if the Russians manage to push further into the north, the like Zaporizhzhia could become the first really large city. It's one of the largest city of Ukraine. I think it had almost 800,000 inhabitants. Like it's probably less right now. It's really large city. Lot of production, industrial. They have a huge. I'm not sure if it's coal, but there are huge industry plants. And if the Ukrainians would be forced to evacuate that city because the front line comes too close, it would be a terrible outcome. It has to be said. When we go more into the detail, the Russians didn't advance any more significantly recently, though, in Stepnohirsk. They made some small gains. So the reaction from the Ukrainian command was obviously kind of good, but they cannot, like, they will have to think out how to hold that place as long as possible. That's my perspective. Yeah, no significant advances in the south, I would say currently. That's the good point.
Yep. I guess that's going to be where we stop the frontline update. I don't know if there's anything you want to mention about Kherson.
Yeah, obviously no change. And the usual note that there are like Russian war crimes committed there daily on a daily base. Maybe you want to refer to a specific project at the point, Erlend?
Yeah, actually, because there is an update to the Human Safari map. Constanza has pushed an update with data of from Brendan, basically expanded the area that we have included into the map. So it's taking all of Kherson. This is data that already existed, but getting it into this format that we have in this map is not an easy task to do. There is also a couple of new features which graphically represents it even better. It's also improved the precision, because this data of each attack is pulled from the casualty reports, not from geolocated data. And there's an algorithm to randomize the dots on the map towards the closest possible location, but also not exactly at a street address, but in the area of a street address. So that has been improved, which makes it more precise. And the map is horrifying, but also very beautifully made. So it's a little bit strange.
It's a good piece of data. Let's put it that way. It's very valuable work the people do. Like it's important, I think, to get the message out. What happening there, and how cruel the Russians are, like trying to terrorize the Ukrainian population there.
Yep. Also check out the statistics if you've never taken a look at it. There's some interesting patterns.
I didn't notice that there are so many statistics there.
Yeah, it's very detailed. So yeah, please go to Tochnyi.info, check out the Human Safari map. Now I guess we wanted to talk about first a subject that is on your scope of view recently, Jay.
Yeah, we were going to postpone it.
You don't want to talk about it?
No, not for today.
Okay.
We will talk about it, but not today. We have already reached 2 hours. I also mentioned it in the internal chat. No worries. Like we want to talk about the role of UGVs in this war, especially from the Ukrainian perspective. And here you can see some let's say preview on the future talk. We have different systems. Some are like have weapons, some have more like a utility feature. And yeah, that's what I want to leave. We have a bit prepared some UGV talk, and we'll do it on another
next time.
Yeah, next time, another stream.
I had completely lost oversight over time. Okay, I'm gonna transition to something completely different. I know I wanted to talk about this. What is happening here, Andrew?
Okay, so we don't actually know what's happening. I assume it is EW. But regardless of what's happening, I just think it's genuinely funny. So here's a Shahed. It is coming in for a landing, right? And it's not going to explode, so don't be scared. It's landing, there it goes. It doesn't have landing gear, obviously, so the landing generates some sparks on the ground. But there it is. It landed on the road, perfectly on the road. Why so perfectly? It's oddly perfect. To be fair, the road is very straight, but what are the chances it lands directly in the middle of a road? I don't know. Yeah. We have another video, though, that is very similar, but slightly different, because this Shahed wanted to be a car when it grew up. The other Shed had a different ambition. Perhaps similarly influenced by EW. Erlend, are you going to the other video?
Which video is it?
The other one. I only gave you 2.
I only downloaded this one, man.
So it's fine. The other one does the exact same thing, landing in the ocean. It became a boat.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's exactly the same. It came down. It landed pretty much exactly parallel to the coast. Exactly the same way this landed parallel to the road and right in the middle of the road. So what is going on? I just think it's funny. It might be EW, or it just might be maybe the drones are defecting. I don't know. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. And this is also recent.
Yeah, they both happened in the same day.
That is actually very interesting.
Oh, the bouncing like when you throw flat rocks on a lake.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they slow down similarly.
Yeah. So I can't tell you exactly what's happening. I assume EW, but there you go. Or maybe they're defecting. Maybe they don't want to work for the Russians anymore.
Yep. And on that funny note, which is good in this, war is horrible. So some light in the day we have to be allowing ourselves. I think we are going to we're gonna say goodbye. And I first want to, of course, thank everyone that participated in the stream. I'm going to thank Sirdo. I'm going to thank Jay, Andrew, and Gao. I also want to thank the people behind the scenes, Barry, Joseph, who is on his very well-deserved break. Thank you, Joseph. And thank you to everyone that is doing something to provide information in the open source space. There's a lot of unsung heroes that needs a pat on their shoulders. It's not been very motivating times recently, but the OSINT community is still, I would say, steaming on, even though I don't know if Andrew agrees.
I mean, we're definitely doing more work than ever, so that's got to count for something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see you again next Sunday, and Slava Ukraini.
Herojem slava.
Herojem slava.
On behalf of the brave.